Number 10. Constantly refreshing feeds for updates. You tell yourself it's harmless, just a quick check, one tiny refresh. But deep down, you already know the truth. You're not checking for information. You're checking for stimulation. Every time your thumb flicks down that screen, your brain is whispering, maybe this time something new. That's dopamine, not curiosity. Dopamine loves the anticipation, not the reward. It's not the new post or notification that hooks you. It's the possibility of it. The slot machine mechanic hidden inside every refresh. The brain craves uncertainty more than satisfaction. So you scroll, you refresh, you wait for that tiny red dot like a lab rat waiting for a pellet. The irony? The more you refresh, the less novelty you actually find. But the less novelty you find, the more your brain panics and demands one more check. It's a perfect feedback loop, a digital casino built into your pocket. You might think you're seeking connection, but what you're really doing is feeding a hunger that never ends. You don't scroll to see, you scroll to feel. To feel alive, relevant, updated, plugged in. The fear of missing out is just the modern name for dopamine withdrawal. The silence between notifications feels unbearable because it forces you to sit with yourself. And that's the one feed you can't refresh. Here's the twist. Dopamine isn't evil. It's the reason we explore, invent, create. But when every microdose comes from pixels instead of purpose, you trade depth for drip. You trade progress for pings. The cure isn't quitting your phone. It's reclaiming the waiting. Let boredom return. Let the pause breathe again. Because if your happiness depends on a flick of your thumb, you're not in control. Your chemistry is. Number 9. Jumping between multiple apps without reason. You open Instagram, close it, tap YouTube, scroll for 30 seconds, then check your messages, then somehow end up on Twitter without remembering how you got there. Sound familiar? You didn't decide to jump between apps. Your dopamine did. What feels like multitasking is actually micro-hunting. Each app is a slot machine, and your brain is walking the casino floor, hoping one of them pays out. Dopamine doesn't like stillness. It loves pursuit. Every app icon becomes a promise. Maybe this one will make me feel something. And because that reward is unpredictable, your brain keeps chasing. That's why you keep switching even when nothing's happening. The hunt itself becomes addictive. You're not bored. You're overstimulated and undersatisfied. This loop rewires your attention span. You begin to feel allergic to silence, allergic to focus. Tasks that once held depth, reading, learning, creating, start to feel unbearably slow. The mind forgets how to sync, how to stay. You've trained it to expect constant novelty, not meaning, not connection, just newness. The tragedy is subtle. Each jump feels like control, you choosing what to open next. But beneath that illusion is panic, a tiny, invisible itch that says, don't stop. There might be something better somewhere else. It's the same reflex that makes gamblers keep pulling the lever, even after losing. Here's the test. Can you sit with one app or one thought for 10 minutes without switching? If that sounds hard, it's not because you lack discipline. It's because your dopamine pathways have forgotten what calm feels like. To heal, you don't need to delete every app. You just need to starve the switch. Stay. Let one thing be enough for a while, because the longer you can sit in one place, the louder your true mind starts to speak. Number 8. Binge watching instead of spacing episodes. You tell yourself, just one more episode. But hours later, the credits roll, and you're left staring at your reflection on a dark screen, wondering where the night went. That's not entertainment anymore. That's self-sedation. You didn't keep watching because it was good. You kept watching because your dopamine wouldn't let you stop. Each episode ends on a cliffhanger for a reason. The unresolved tension is dopamine's favorite flavor. The brain hates unfinished stories. It wants closure, resolution, the next reveal. Streaming platforms know this and they weaponize it. Autoplay isn't convenience. It's a leash. Before your conscious mind decides, the next episode begins, and dopamine whispers, you can rest later. But here's the deeper cost. Binge-watching blurs your emotional edges. You feel the highs and lows of 10 storylines in one sitting, leaving your brain flooded but hollow. It's the same neurochemical storm as sugar overload. Short bursts of joy followed by a flat line of emptiness. The longer you binge, the harder it becomes to feel pleasure in real-time life, where emotions unfold slowly and unpredictably. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Stories are powerful, sacred even. They shape culture, empathy, imagination. But when you consume them like fast food, you strip away their nutrition. Every episode deserves digestion, reflection, integration. When you watch too fast, you don't experience the story, you escape into it. So the next time the next episode countdown starts, try something radical. Pause. Let your mind sit in the unresolved. Let anticipation rebuild naturally. Because when you reclaim pacing, you reclaim pleasure. You remind your brain that satisfaction comes not from endless flow, but from learning to wait. Number 7. Snacking even when not hungry. You're not hungry, not really. You just need a pause, a small reward, a hit of something that feels like comfort. You stand in front of the fridge, scanning shelves as if one of them hides the meaning of life. Chips, chocolate, anything crunchy, salty, sweet, doesn't matter, because it's not your stomach asking, it's your brain begging for dopamine. This is emotional grazing, the silent addiction that doesn't look dangerous but rewires your system from the inside. When life feels dull, uncertain, or slow, your brain seeks stimulation. Food becomes the easiest portal. Quick, legal, instantly gratifying. That first bite, that's the chemical spark. The flavor, the texture, the crunch, they're all dopamine buttons pressed perfectly in rhythm. But here's the catch. Dopamine spikes before satisfaction. You don't eat because it tastes good. You eat because your brain anticipates that it will. Once the pleasure fades, the craving resets, and you're back in the kitchen again. Over time, this loop separates hunger from eating. You stop listening to your body and start listening to your boredom. The line between want and need dissolves, and slowly, the ability to sit in emotional emptiness, the sacred art of being still, disappears. You're not soothing yourself anymore, you're silencing yourself. But awareness can reverse the wiring. Next time you reach for a snack, don't ask, what do I want to eat? Ask, what do I want to feel? Most of the time, it's not flavor you're chasing. It's peace, rest, connection, relief. And those can't be unwrapped or poured into a bowl. True nourishment starts when you stop using food as a buffer between you and your discomfort. Let yourself taste your own silence for once. You'll find it's richer than anything in your pantry. Number 6. Checking phone first thing in the morning. The alarm rings, and before you even take your first conscious breath, your hand moves on its own. Screen unlocks. Notifications flood in. The day hasn't even begun, yet your mind is already hijacked. You didn't wake up to your life. You woke up inside the feed. That single reflex, checking your phone before your thoughts even form, is one of the clearest signs of dopamine dependence. Here's what really happens. While you sleep, your brain resets its dopamine baseline, ready to start fresh. The moment you check your phone, you flood it with micro rewards, likes, updates, texts, chaos. It's like blasting your nervous system with fireworks before sunrise. Your brain gets overstimulated before it even touches peace. And from that moment on, calm feels boring. The cost? You lose sovereignty over your attention. Instead of deciding what to focus on, you react to whatever blinks first. Your thoughts aren't chosen, they're assigned. The first thing you see becomes the tone of your entire morning. A negative comment? Instant anxiety? A dopamine hit? Instant chase. Either way, your emotions aren't yours anymore. They're outsourced. And yet, the irony is that we check our phones not for the content, but for the feeling of being plugged in, of belonging, of motion, of meaning. That tiny digital glow feels like connection, but it's only reflection, a mirror that shows movement without depth. Try this experiment. When you wake, delay the scroll. 10 minutes of silence, breath, or sunlight. You'll feel the craving rise like withdrawal. That's the addiction revealing itself. But if you can sit through it, even briefly, you begin rewiring. You reclaim your morning from the noise. Because the first voice you hear each day shouldn't come from a device. It should come from you. Number 5. Needing music podcasts for every task. You call it background noise. But what if it's more than that? What if silence has become unbearable? You start your day, plug in your earbuds, and the world fades away. You can't wash dishes, walk, shower, or even think without sound filling the gaps. It feels normal, productive, even. But beneath that soundtrack hides a deep dependence, dopamine-driven avoidance of quiet. Silence used to be the natural rhythm of life. It's where thoughts form, emotions breathe, and creativity is born. But your brain, flooded with constant stimulation, now fears the void. It craves the drip, words, beats, noise, anything to prevent stillness. Each playlist, each podcast episode becomes a pacifier for unease. Because silence forces confrontation with boredom, with uncertainty, with yourself. The dopamine system thrives on stimulation, and music or podcasts deliver it efficiently. Each beat, each new topic triggers micro-releases of reward chemicals. It feels soothing, but it's actually distraction disguised as comfort. Over time, your brain forgets how to rest without input. You begin to equate silence with emptiness instead of peace. But here's the paradox. Creativity, clarity, and intuition only emerge in quiet. Your greatest insights hide in pauses you keep filling. When you walk without headphones, the mind starts stitching fragments together. That's when your subconscious speaks. Try going one day without constant sound. Notice the discomfort, that twitch, that urge to press play. That's withdrawal, not boredom. Once you pass through it, something beautiful happens. Your mind remembers its natural tempo, and you realize the silence you feared wasn't empty. It was full of everything you've been too distracted to hear. Number 4. Buying small rewards impulsively. You tell yourself, I deserve this. A coffee, a new shirt, that gadget you'll forget about in a week. It's harmless, right? Just a small treat. But if you zoom out, those tiny purchases reveal something deeper, the constant need to feel rewarded. That's dopamine dependency wearing a consumer's smile. Every swipe, every add to cart is a micro-celebration. Your brain lights up before the item even arrives. Anticipation again, not possession, is what feeds the addiction. The thrill peaks when you click buy now, then plummets the moment reality returns. That hollow feeling afterward, it's not guilt. It's your brain realizing the reward was chemical, not emotional. Marketers know this intimately. They sell dopamine, not products. Limited time offer. Only 2 left in stock. These aren't facts. They're emotional triggers. They weaponize urgency because dopamine responds best to uncertainty. The possibility of missing out becomes more addictive than the thing itself. The worst part? These impulsive rewards start replacing real milestones. Instead of earning satisfaction through effort or growth, you outsource it to transactions. A small dopamine hit becomes easier than facing deeper emptiness. You begin confusing comfort with progress. To break the cycle, you don't need to stop buying, you need to start noticing. Next time you feel the itch to purchase, pause and ask, what am I really trying to buy? Often it's control, excitement, or validation, none of which fit in a shopping bag. Ironically, true reward comes from waiting, from letting the craving crest and fade without obeying it. Because that moment of restraint isn't deprivation, it's detox. Every time you resist the impulse, you teach your brain that fulfillment isn't for sale. Number 3. Scrolling late at night despite exhaustion. It's 2 a.m. You're half asleep, eyes burning, yet your thumb keeps moving. You tell yourself, just one more scroll. But that last scroll has no end. The feed stretches into infinity, an endless stream of digital fireflies your brain can't stop chasing. This isn't insomnia, it's dopamine, refusing to let the day die. When you're tired, your prefrontal cortex, the part that governs impulse control, shuts down first. That's when dopamine takes the wheel. Each flick of the screen feels like a spark in the dark, promising comfort, distraction, connection. But what you're really feeding is anxiety, the fear of missing out on something while the world sleeps. Every new post is a microdose of maybe, and your brain, craving unpredictability, keeps saying yes. The irony? The more you scroll, the less your brain rests, and the more restless you become. The blue light tricks your body into thinking it's still daylight. Cortisol rises, melatonin drops. Your mind stays wired, even as your body begs for sleep. You wake up drained, yet reach for the same screen again the next night. The loop continues, not because you enjoy it, but because you've forgotten what real closure feels like. To break it, you don't need to throw away your phone. You need a ritual of ending. Replace the infinite scroll with something finite. A book, a journal, silence. Tell your brain the day is over, because every night you trade rest for stimulation. You teach your nervous system that peace is optional. It isn't. It's fuel. Sleep isn't wasted time. It's the place where your mind repairs the damage dopamine left behind. Number 2. Chasing new hobbies but quitting fast. You see a video of someone painting, playing guitar, or training for a marathon, and suddenly, a spark ignites. That's it, you say. I'll start tomorrow. The first few days feel electric. You buy the tools, watch tutorials, imagine the future version of yourself. But a week later, it fades. The brush dries, the guitar collects dust, and the excitement dies before mastery even begins. That's not laziness, that's dopamine deception. Your brain loves beginnings, the novelty, the possibility, the identity shift. It's intoxicating. But dopamine doesn't care about progress, it craves potential. It rewards the start, not the sustain. Once a routine forms and predictability replaces excitement, the chemical high vanishes. So you jump from one obsession to another, mistaking motion for growth. It feels like evolution, but it's fragmentation. You build 10 bridges halfway across the river and wonder why you never reach the other side. Each abandoned hobby leaves behind a residue of guilt, proof that your attention was never trained for endurance. And every time you quit, the next beginning feels smaller, shorter, less thrilling. But the truth is this: mastery is born in boredom. True joy doesn't come from the new, it comes from the deepening. That's where dopamine must give way to discipline, to curiosity without reward. The brain that once chased novelty can learn to savor repetition, to find beauty in progress invisible to the eye. So before starting your next new thing, pause. Ask yourself, am I chasing excitement or growth? If it's excitement, the flame will fade fast. But if it's growth, the boredom becomes your teacher. And that's when transformation, the kind that lasts, finally begins. Number 1. Avoiding silence or boredom at all costs. You call it just keeping busy. But look closer, it's not busyness. It's escape. Every spare second must be filled. Messages, videos, playlists, chatter. Silence feels like suffocation. Boredom feels like failure. Yet underneath that panic lies the deepest addiction of all, dependence on dopamine-driven noise. Your brain has been trained to equate stillness with emptiness. But silence isn't empty, it's raw. It exposes what you've been avoiding, the unresolved thoughts, the quiet ache, the questions that rise when the world stops speaking. And so, rather than face yourself, you keep reaching for screens, for sound, for something, anything, to drown it out. The problem? Every distraction is a delay, and the longer you delay, the louder the silence grows. Boredom once served a purpose. It was the seed of imagination, the space where creativity, self-awareness, and wonder bloomed. But now, even waiting at a red light feels unbearable. The moment the mind quiets, the thumb twitches for stimulation. You're not avoiding boredom, you're avoiding being. Here's the truth. Dopamine doesn't want peace. It wants pursuit. But the human spirit thrives in pause. To reclaim it, you must relearn stillness. Not as punishment, but as power. Start small. Sit without sound for 5 minutes. Watch the discomfort rise and fall. Beyond it lies something extraordinary: clarity. Because silence isn't the absence of meaning, it's the presence of you, the real you, the one that exists beneath the scrolling, the noise, the constant chase, the one who doesn't need to be entertained to feel alive. When you finally stop running from the quiet, you realize peace was never missing, you just kept the volume too high to hear it.